Hi, Bella. I really like your responses, by the way. I thought I'd make something clear. I don't think that you and I are likely to come to any kind of agreement in terms of the issue of meaning, because we may not be talking about the same thing. Um, to me, meaning is something that falls outside of what we normally call that which is disputable or verifiable. It's not something that we can phenomenally demonstrate, that we can demonstrate to someone else. I can't, if my existence has meaning by sitting in front of that pachinko machine playing pachinko, and it gives me purpose, joy, and fulfillment, and a sense of belonging in the universe, or whatever terms you want to use to describe meaning, then whether anyone else likes it or not, that gives me meaning. Or I shouldn't even say it gives me meaning. My life has meaning. You can't look at somebody else and say, you just think that your life has meaning. You don't. Your life doesn't have meaning. By the same token, you can't say to somebody, and I've seen a lot of religious people say this to people who are in a state of despair, you just think that your life doesn't have meaning. It has all kinds of meaning. That's equally stupid. Meaning comes from within. It's not something that we can look for outside of ourselves. It's not even something that we can identify. Do we have a means of determining whether or not there is meaning? Again, science and things like that are really not of much help, because, and certainly a frame of mind that, I colloquially call scientism, is worse than useless, because it almost says that because science can't demonstrate it, that meaning does not exist. Now, in my opinion, science doesn't say that. In fact, science, as I understand it, just sort of says that that's nothing to do with me. This idea of meaning or happiness or whatever, that's not my concern. Science is about things that are verifiable between people. Demonstrable, peer review, all that kind of thing, which meaning it doesn't fall under that category. It doesn't. I don't think it can. Meaning is an experience. Meaning is a quale, one of your qualia. It's something that you either have or you don't have in your life, and you can't tell if someone else's life has meaning. It's impossible to do that. And not only that, I can tell you that my life is meaningful, that my life has meaning, but I have no way of demonstrating that to you. You can say, prove that your life has meaning, and I'm stumped. That's the end of it. Okay, I guess you don't believe that my life has meaning. Oh well. Nothing you or I can do about that. That's just the nature of the beast. We can't, as I said when I was dealing with Quayle and the other ones, you can't experience someone else's experiences. Otherwise, you'd be them. And meanness is, my individuality is that which is on the receiving end of my experiences. So I don't think you can actually say, or this is what I meant, by the way, when I said meaning does not exist in the universe, but that doesn't mean there is no meaning. Meaning is not something you can go looking for and find. Yeah, I suppose you can find things outside that will trigger meaning that will arise here, but it's not something that you'll actually find. The only thing I think that you can find in terms of meaning in the external world is something that will strike the spark that's already waiting to be struck inside you. As I said, there are lots of people who find meaning in all kinds of things that I find completely idiotic. As I say, religion, it doesn't do a thing for me, but I understand that it does give a ton of meaning for other people. So unless I can actually get inside their consciousness and see the value that they draw from this, or the value, rather, that is, I guess, that their ideas of religion act as a catalyst for, I don't really know whether or not they're getting anything out of religion. I can't experience their experiences. I can go into a church and look at a bunch of people singing hymns, and I can say, okay, you're singing. That's all very nice. Okay, I actually even like the sound of people singing hymns. But I'd say, what a waste of time. I certainly wouldn't go out of my way to do this every Sunday. But to them, that might be the high point of their week. How am I to tell them that they're wasting their time? It would be a waste of time for me. A meaningless exercise. It's not for them. Or maybe it isn't for them. How do I know? A lot of people drag their butts into church every day simply because, or every Sunday, probably, simply because they've always done it. They grew up with it. Their spouse is nagging them into it or whatever. But I'm sure that there are people that go in there because they like to do it. But at the end of the day, I don't really care why anyone does any of this stuff, because only they know that. Only they know their own reasons. So I think you've got to be careful with meaning. Value, this kind of thing. You mentioned that suffering has value. Well, okay, I'm not going to dispute that. But does suffering absolutely have value? We don't know that, because, and again, how can we judge what our sufferings, what the value of it is? I can think of few things worse in this life to have than depression, and I had the worst kind of depression, apparently, I don't know. But when they write the book on my life, that about 5 years that I went through of pure hell in my existence may overall have actually improved my life. I don't know yet, and I won't know until I tip over, I guess, till my life is ended. But it seems to have triggered something in me, a lot of introspection and thinking and reevaluating everything that I believed and everything that I thought I believed but didn't really, etc. It has acted as a trigger for a lot of things in my life that have turned out to be extremely positive. But that's the worst kind of suffering I can possibly imagine, is severe depression. And yet, it has value for me now. This experience that has a net benefit for me. So you've got to be careful about suffering. Suffering and pain and everything in and of itself, it's very unpleasant when you're in the middle of it. But if you want to judge it, if you want to judge whether or not it's been good or bad for you, we're often not in a position to do so while we're in the middle of the suffering. And I'm not saying that suffering is always good for you. Definitely not. But we've got to be careful when we try to assign value to it. Because while we're in the midst of this suffering, we don't understand. The jury is still out, rather, as to what value it will ultimately have to us. Life is never cut and dried like that. And one final thing I'd like to sort of say, I understand that what I'm talking about, there's a certain amount of overlap with things like antinatalism and, Zapfi and stuff like that. I'm not really interested in arguing that. I understand there is the overlap, but what I really am interested in is the point of existence, the actual value of existing. Existentialism is the issue that I'm talking now. Nobody is actually trying to get me to discuss antinatalism, but that's not. It may look otherwise, but that's not what I'm trying to discuss. What my position has nothing to do with babies, because that's something completely different. Just thought I'd make that clear. But there is, as I say, a great deal of overlap between existentialism and, certain arguments in favor of antinatalism. But anyway, thanks for the response.